and with Adam, him bringing his recent case, and we have discussed with him if it's okay to talk about it publicly, so I have his permission. But what we find in defense of plant medicine across the country is situations where you have natives who are teaching people about this plant medicine and the purification and bringing them into the sacred fires and the sacred ceremonies coming under scrutiny from the federal government, you know. And this has been a huge issue. It's a huge Goliath that we fight. But if you would talk to that, why is the governments of the world so afraid for people to be able to peek through this window? I mean, you and I both know the answer to this, but why do they come down on these compounds that they have no right being on the schedule? And even if they were on the schedule, everyone in this country still has a First Amendment and free expression, but we still find this plant medicine, this sacred medicine, coming under attack. Would you speak to that for a few?
I am not sure exactly which psychotropic went on the schedule first, but that set the precedent for all the others. So whichever one it was, and I suspect it probably was cannabis. I really think cannabis was the first item put on that schedule, and simply because it was obvious that cannabis was creating an alternate culture, and a government has to have a uniform culture in order to survive. I mean, that's why there was so many tribes, even though, everybody had sort of a similar culture, but they weren't exactly the same culture. So they never could form one united nation. There was no one united native nation. There was 500. Well, right now there's 500 federally recognized nations, and there was many, many more. And each one of them came to their place of understanding through their work with whatever methodologies and processes that they had. Well, cannabis altered people's worldview to the point where an alternate idea of culture was being generated by it, and it was flat out scary to the government, or the people that were in government, because they were really at that point still trying to create a united States based on a very homogeneous culture. They were working towards that thing called the Great Melting Pot, where everybody melted into one homogeneous consciousness. And all of a sudden, this one medicine shows up, and it starts generating some different ways of thinking, and different ways of behavior, and even a different kind of music came out of it. It was and at that point, it became a little frightening, because it disrupted the melting pot process, and so it had to go. And the way they made it go was by just fabricating a flat out lie, and that was that it had no redeeming value, and that was not true, because prior to its declaration of having no redeeming value, it was a very recognized plant medicine, and it was used, in folk ways, for all sorts of things, and its psychoactive effect was not really harmful enough to be classified as a complete disruptor of the psychology of human beings, but it was enough to disrupt the social consciousness and create an alternate social consciousness. And that was, I think, the main factor. But they had to just flat out lie and say it has no redeeming value. So it got put into Schedule 1, which is a schedule that the United States created for things that have no redeeming value in terms of medical. And since it did have some physiological effects, they had to they had to classify it as a drug, because in fact it is a drug, but it has redeeming value medically, and it has redeeming value socially and spiritually and psychologically. Uh, but the things that it did do were not in harmony with what the government wanted. And like I said, it disrupted the melting pot process, and it was out of here. Then when the other psychotropics came into awareness, because the non-native people, which of course was who the government was concerned with, non-native people didn't really have consciousness of psychotropics or mind altering substances. Their introduction to them was in fact cannabis. But then suddenly some guy in Europe discovered LSD and its mind altering effect, and it then joined into the consciousness of the world. And so suddenly there was a new mind altering substance, which they're like, again, they didn't want it to be classified as having redeeming value, so it got shoved in there. But LSD kind of woke people up to mushrooms and a whole and all the others now suddenly came out of the closet. It opened the door for things, and as they appeared, they quickly got shoved into Schedule 1, no redeeming value drug.
Right. These compounds make you think outside the box, so they're dangerous. We have to make them illegal, and anybody who would use them, criminals, right?
It did, and because criminals, how do you define a criminal? Somebody that disrupts the order of things. And yes, these substances created an alternate worldview, which disrupted the order of things.
No doubt. And what I find, I mean, I do find it sickening. One, the absolute travesty of the native people and their land. That's a travesty. I'm Irish, so I know all about that. But the other thing is that even today, we're still having to address this issue with the First Amendment and the native people simply practicing, plant-based medicine, and they come under scrutiny with, I mean, in the case of Adam, I mean, we've just been so sickened by it, Patricio, because it's like this guy has spent more than 20 years of his life teaching the ways of this plant to assist people in their healing. And in my private discussions with him, I said, if there is any indication that this planet needs healing right now, the signs are everywhere. And when you get alphabet organizations that come in with, machine guns, armed thugs come in and destroy the plant medicine and disrupt the life of those people who carry, the task of teaching this to others, and allowing a doorway for people to reconnect spiritually. It's like it's a sin. It's the greatest of sins. So my question would be like, what, as me and Dave and Nick, we're defenders of the plant-based medicine. We think that everyone has a right to it and should have access to it. I personally believe that it's best in ceremonial settings. What assistance can needs to be, from your point of view, given to protect indigenous peoples and this practice of initiation through plant-based medicine? What do we need to do? I mean, we're willing to fight, especially in this case in Arizona with Adam. I mean, his life's been upturned, so we're willing to get into the fight to prevent other people in the area from being, coming under scrutiny from the federal government. But what other advice or encouragements would you give people like us to step in and assist, to allow you guys simply to practice what you believe?
The challenge is to connect the First Amendment to a practice that creates an alternate world view and culture. The, the people who wrote the First Amendment never in their wildest dreams envisioned a religion that that altered the the worldview that they had. They just could not. They just couldn't believe that they thought that their worldview was a given across the spectrum of all human beings. They thought every human being thought like they did, or would eventually come to that point of thinking, and the idea that a religion could pop up that they would have to defend that actually was disruptive to their order is just mind-boggling, because it puts them in a very awkward situation. They now have to defend a system that's disruptive to their system, because they could not envision a system that was disruptive to their system. And this system that's disruptive to their system is a religion, a spiritual practice. So your challenge is to connect the First Amendment to to religions that are not within the realm of the First Amendment's initial vision. Okay, so we're actually asking you. I'm asking you guys to stretch the value or the interpretation of the First Amendment beyond the founders' vision, because the founders' vision was that that religion, all these religions were going to show up, but they were all based on a worldview that was very, very, what they thought common to human beings, and so consequently, if the founders knew then what we know now, there would be no First Amendment First Amendment protection for religion, because they would not have defended a counter process to their worldview. I mean, nobody defends well, maybe. I mean, actually, it was one spiritual just said you love your enemies. Now that's a tough one. Of course, it says to love your enemies. Never does it say defend and support them.
Right.
So consequently, I'm asking you to support and defend the enemy of the established worldview. That is mentioned. That is the part and parcel of the First Amendment.
Yeah, understood. And all of us at Canada, since we're misfits anyway. So when the case came across my desk, I was like, "Ooh, goody goody," because this is I have said that for the longest time, Patricio, is that the First Amendment is very powerful, and you have to allow the First Amendment for beliefs that don't necessarily go in your apple cart, because if you're going to defend colonial Orthodox Christianity to the death, you also have to defend beliefs that may be clearly contradictory to your own. And like the case with Adam, this is a very clear-cut case of a violation of First Amendment, if I've ever
Actually,
seen.
Adam's case is interesting because it has a precedent. The
And
founder of his order,
right,
James Mooney,
right,
when he was busted for the possession and practice of the peyote way, he was defended by the Mormon Church. The Mormons' legal team stepped in to defend them, because the Mormons recognized the threat. They said, wait a minute, if the government can rule against the Native Americans church, there is nothing to stop them from ruling against us, because there are some practices in our religion that are not perfectly aligned with the Christian religion. So if we don't stop that steamroller at this junction, it will roll over us.
That's right.
Okay, so look into that case and see exactly how the Mormon legal team defended James Mooney against that process. Because see, Adam joined Mooney's church because that church had already beat the U.S. government,
Right.
at least on the federal level.
Right. Right.
Okay. Now then, here's where it gets really, really strange. Adam was not rated by the federal level. The feds did not come after Adam.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Patricio, because we haven't had Adam on yet. But if you would, he said he's known you for 22 years. For the listeners, give us a recap, a quick recap, and then continue with what you were going to say with what is Adam's situation for the listeners.
Adam's situation Adam's situation is this. He is a branch of the Native American church known as Onac, and it's Oklevueha Native American Church. Now there is another Native American church that is not Onac. There is actually two peyote using Native American churches. The first Native American church won its case several years prior to Onac's case. James Mooney started another Native American church using the same practices as the original Native American church, but was not a branch of that one. He started kind of the way I did. He just created another church that used the same sacrament, that was based on a lot of the same principles, but had a slight wrinkle in it. The slight wrinkle, which is what is why they came after him. The original Native American church was not open to non-natives. James Mooney, when he opened his Native American church, he says his church is open to all humans. So that was a problem with the federal government, because, well, they'd already lost trying to regulate the Native Americans and what they did, because they have a very interesting sovereignty situation. But when non-natives got pulled into that same practice, it was problematic. So the federal government went after James and his group. Well, then I told you a story of how he was bailed out because he didn't have the wherewithal to bail himself out against the federal government. But the Mormon church was big enough to be able to put up a substantial legal challenge, and won. So that is okay. And Adam's connection, of course, is he's a branch of Oklevueha, ONAC, not NAC, but ONAC, which is, two different churches, same sacrament, a lot of the same practices. So this is the connection. Oh, now how did Adam wind up being arrested?
Right.
The Adam, because Oklevueha ONAC is now the largest um, non-Christian church in the United States with probably 100,000 members. Okay, it became huge. Well, because James opened it to all humans.
Right.
You didn't have to be Native American, so consequently, boom, everybody wanted in. So it's huge. It's really, really huge. Because it's huge, it has a very huge demand of the medicines. So Adam, being a member of that, being a branch of that church, was a supplier. He had made, through his interactions with the Native American people in Central and South America, he had opened up lines of trade between himself as an agent for Oklevueha or ONAC and those tribes. Well, he was moving so much material that it actually got noticed by the import regulating agencies. They get those importing agencies then notified the state of Arizona that there was substances which are on the federal schedule moving from Central and South America into Arizona via Adam Yellowbird. So the state assumed, and a mistake on their part, I think, the state assumed that Adam was a major drug dealer. So they went in and raided. Now, at this point, now they show up, and Adam shows them his paperwork for being a branch of Onac. However, they blew it off, and then when the raid went public, they said that Adam was trying to defend himself by claiming to be a member of some phony baloney church.
Now, was this in the news or was this just in police
Yes, it was in
blotters?
the news, right? I'm actually sort of paraphrasing from the newspaper clipping that I got to see,
Hmm.
because, you know, they were convinced that their charges were on Adam, that his charges are as a drug dealer.
Right.
They're not charging him with illegal church or any such thing. They're trying to pin the fact that they're trying to say that he was a drug dealer because he was moving such vast quantities of scheduled substances,
Hmm.
but he was moving them to the larger church.
Right. Right.
It was coming in through him because he had made the necessary connections with the suppliers through his spiritual work. Adam has been, well, Adam actually is, you might say, he's actually my successor. Remember, I said, how did I get involved in this? I said I organized a gathering of elders from all of the Americas.
I do recall.
Well, Adam, when I retired from that position as the organizer, it was handed over to Adam. So Adam right now is the current organizer for the International Elders Council. I would call it council. But it is also a reorganization of the original trade routes. So there's a lot happening here. It's not just spiritual. It's political, and it's social, and it's economic.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to reestablish the trade routes, and see, that was the whole point of me bringing together 300 elders from all over the Americas, and I mean from Chile all the way to to Canada and bringing them together for the purpose of reestablishing connections. Well, Adam is that guy now. He is the pivot point. But because he's also a member of Native American of Onac, he also saw this as an opportunity, again, the trade routes, to move trade from those places to northward, and using the vehicle of his church. Because actually that would probably be the only vehicle. I can't imagine. I tried in the past to organize a sort of a United Nations of Native Americans, and it proved to be extremely challenging, and I backed out of it. And so we just sort of have a loose affiliate. Well, when I dropped it, it was a loose affiliation of contact only. Adam has actually tried to turn it into something a lot more physical.
Right. So he's the successor, and he's coming under fire from the state of Arizona. So the way that we had, when it was kind of brought to our table, one, Adam is just a wonderful human being. I mean, everyone that I've introduced him to in our circles, it's his passion for what he's doing is just very obvious, and his insight is very obvious. So it makes sense to me in the bigger scheme of things of why he would come under scrutiny and have to bear this burden. And I think this has been going on since Groundhog's Day, but you've known him for 22 years. Is that right?
He actually showed up. He actually showed up as a person with curiosity at that grand gathering of the elders.
Yeah.
In fact, he actually crashed it. He was not invited. He actually crashed that meeting.
So he's a fellow misfit. That's great. It's good to know.
He got wind of it somehow, some way, and worked his way in. I think he came in somehow he got past security and all of that, and got into the gathering. So he made contact with the elders that were at that meeting. And when I retired, the elders handed the job that I used to have to him.
To him, yeah.
Because I didn't hand it to him. I didn't say, "Okay, Adam, you're my successor." I pulled out and kind of left the elders on the lurch. But they said, "Well, the work that's been started needs to continue and move forward." And so they had met this guy, Adam Yellowbird, at the gathering, and they commissioned him they commandeered him into the role that I used to have, and he took it up.
And in the past few months since all this has come, I mean, people don't really understand the impact that it has on your life when the state government or the federal government comes in with their, under color of law to destroy your way of life. And like I said, we want to help him in any way we can with, his GoFundMe, Patreon, and just getting the story out there. But and he's not present, but we will have a podcast with him. From your point of view as his friend for the past, couple of decades, how has this affected his life when the state intervened?
Oh, he's shattered. Oh, he's shattered. He even his health has been damaged. Yeah, he was a incredibly healthy human being. He still is spiritually focused, but he's not as sharp as he used to be, and he's physically not as strong as he used to be.
As a result,
This really, and of course, he now has no really legs to stand on. He had a business that got completely killed. He had standing in his community that has been shattered. He's actually going to leave the state. He has to.
and this is what the federal and the state governments leave in their aftermath is destroyed lives, and it's pathetic. And I hope that me sitting down as a legal strategist and looking at his case, I think that one, it's a slam dunk win for his case, but I also think that it's a case that is going to send a very loud message to this country in regard to touching plant-based medicine and those who have been called and chosen to be its administrators, so to speak. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Okay, your win in court for Adam is going to remind states that they should not interfere in things religion. They have no business there. There's going to be a big slap on the wrist for the state of Arizona saying, look, when he showed you papers that he was a member of a church, you guys should have pulled the heck out, packed up your trucks and driven away because you were completely out of your league. So yes, but that doesn't change the bigger picture because those substances are still Schedule 1 on the federal level. So now what's going to happen is all the states are going to say, oh, let's not make that, let's not, because it's going to cost the state of Arizona a fortune. They're going to have to compensate Adam millions. It's going to cost them a lot of money. No state will ever go after anybody. Once they pull up that, I've got a paper here that says I'm a church, they're going to pack up their trucks and leave. That's what you're going to do. You're going to get the states out of the bust business. But you're not going to make a dent in the federal situation, because this could happen again to another branch of ONAC. In fact, it could happen to the young one of the people that's ONAC has opened its door in a very strange way. ONAC is now not just a peyote church, it is a sacrament church. So it is now sanctioning psilocybin. It is sanctioning cannabis. The federal government can still bust a branch of Onac that is using cannabis. Now, no state will do that, of course, because you guys are going to fix that. I mean, like I said, when somebody puts out their Onac sticker, states are going to just run for their lives. But the Fed will still has the power to come in and declare that cannabis was not defended in the Onac case in Utah. The Mormon legal team defended Onac's use of peyote. Nothing more, nothing less.
Gotcha.
But Onac is standing by that win, saying it allows them to sanction all the other sacraments.
Right.
I think that's extremely risky on Onac's part.
But very stylish.
My feeling on that is probably, and I think James actually probably was scared to do it at the time when he really was, when Utah was going after him, to actually mention, by the way, we also do psilocybin and cannabis, But he thought he was going to prison forever, and so he just said, yeah, we do peyote and that's it, and it's like and kind of saying when it was over, it's like, whew, boy, I dodged that bullet.
Yeah, when your head's on the chopping block, it's you sweat it out a little bit.
Yeah, but then later on, I guess he kind of said, well, wait a minute, and he read laws related. And so there is a case. Well, First Amendment. You can make a case for a church that has a declared sacrament to come under protection of the First Amendment.
What's funny about it, Patricio, is I was brought in by Megan Bear, who is my medicine woman. She's with the Native American Church in Georgia. If you can't tell by my accent, I'm a Georgia boy.
Oh, okay. Are you Onac or original NAC?
Neither. Megan brought me in without me having to join those two. So
Oh,
I didn't
now,
join Onac.
so you're flying by the seat of your pants, because I don't see, you really don't have you're not a member of any of these things. So how in the world could you possibly you could not stand a challenge?
I don't know. Well, what's funny is after she initiated me and I was, brought into plant-based medicine, I'm actually a credentialed minister. So I'm actually currently, which is funny, I'm writing the bylaws for my own church, which is
Okay,
Liberty Temple.
okay.
And I've had small groups come to my home for plant medicine ceremony. So I got to thinking, I go, the more people in Georgia that I help, I'm going to come under fire by the state. Now
Yes,
that's, now that's,
so you're gonna beat that. Actually,
yeah,
if you can get Adam out of his situation here, Georgia's not going to come after you. No,
yeah,
no state will ever come after anybody who holds up a a paper that says I'm a church. But
right.
that does not free you from a challenge from the Fed.
This is true. And what was funny was I was like, okay, I know I'm willing to fight that fight because I'm just a misfit, and I've always fought the fight against the federal government since I was a kid. So, but it was ironic, and there is no such thing as coincidence. We know that. But then Adam's story comes, and I'm like, oh, here's the fight that I was looking for. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I do believe, I mean, one, I do know that we're going to win. And I believe that it's going to send a very loud statement to, the state government, and it better make the federal government kind of be weary of touching another person that utilizes this as a part of their First Amendment. It's a crime. It's a crime what they did to him and what they're doing to a lot of other people. It really is. So I'm just excited to be a part of it. All of us really are. And I know time is kind of getting short, but I got Dave DePuma and Nick Lancaster on with us. So if Dave or Nick have any other questions for Patricio or statements you want to make, you guys can unmute and do that now.
I just want to say I really appreciate your time and insight. It was very great.
Dave, you got anything?
Yeah, likewise, man. It's been inspirational to say the least. We just watched a documentary, like he just said, and it's just like blowing my mind everything that's going on.
Yeah, these two are entering into this world. Well, at least Dave is. Like the past month, I've opened his eyes up to some spiritual stuff, and then all this happens, and I told Adam, I said, well, it looks like we're making a trip out to Arizona very, very soon. So, Patricio, hopefully the stars will align and we'll be around the sacred fires together. That's,
that could happen. It's yeah, I although you better hurry up if you're going to go to Arizona, because Adam is leaving Arizona.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
he pretty much has to leave. So I imagine he won't be there but another month tops.
all right. And
He might be only coming into Arizona only for court dates.
and where are you out of?
I'm in New Mexico. I'm in the city of Albuquerque.
Okay, okay. And I think you guys are meeting up soon, so we might be able to plan something like
Well, yeah,
that.
we are meeting. We are meeting up soon. There is an elders council meeting that's going to happen, and I can't give you the details because it's elders council's business.
Hmm.
But well, I have a feeling, and we haven't met in 2 years because of COVID.
Hmm.
So I have a feeling, and COVID is actually the first shot of purification's first shot. I have a feeling we're going to be seriously discussing our movement forward in the time of the purification, and so
Yeah.
we're going to have to get our ducks and ducks and ducklings in a row, so that we can navigate this time. So
Certainly.
yeah, the elders, now that we have this window of opportunity to get together and quickly you know uh, work out some kind of a rough plan, going forward, we're going to.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we're going to elders council in the shortly.
Well, if you guys would give us a heads up on when this council is, I'm sure me and Dave can be in the area.
Yeah, you can be in the area, but you can't be in the meeting.
Understood.
Unless you pull an Adam Yellowbird
And crash it.
come in over the hill past security, because that's literally what he did. We were meeting in this valley, and he actually hiked over the hill and eluded security. And before and started meeting with the elders before we spotted him. And then by that time, the elders kind of vouched for him, and so we had to keep him.
Sounds like my kind of guy. So before we end this show, is there anything any parting words of wisdom you'd like to let people know about the protection of plant-based medicine and the indigenous beliefs?
It's doable. It's very, very doable. It's very, very defendable. It has a tradition longer than the United States existence. So heck, it's probably got longer. It's got a longer existence than probably even the Christian existence. So
for sure.
it's extremely defendable. It's just a matter of using such a preponderance of logic and reasoning that logical, reasonable people will have no choice but to come to concur. So, but that's just it right now. The powers that be are not listening to logical evidence. They're having trouble. Well, again, I outlined it earlier. It's tough to defend your enemy.
Yeah.
And that's the way they're looking at it. They're looking at it as an enemy, especially now when they're seeing that it's actually they're being challenged on two fronts: the collapse of their order of things, and then the emergence of a new order.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is extremely awkward place to be.
Sucks to be them. It's in one of my visions, my Father who art in heaven, he said, "Son, go down there and explain it to him."
Yep. Pictures with circles and arrows.
No doubt. So